Welcome back to Elite Conversations, where we learn about the strategies and tactics used by high performers to maximize human performance. Today's guest is Dr. Travis Engebretson, a serial entrepreneur and founder of NeoSoma Health, a company revolutionizing weight loss by making life changing treatments accessible to everyone. After losing over 100 pounds himself, Travis turned his personal transformation into a mission to help others take control of their health. With a PhD in industrial and organizational psychology and decades of leadership experience across multiple industries, from biotech to media, he brings unique insights into what it takes to optimize both personal and professional performance. Whether you're looking for inspiration to transform your life or strategies to lead at the highest level, this conversation will be packed with lots of wisdom. Travis, thank you for joining us today.
Super happy to be here, man.
Let's jump right into it, man.
Let's
What
do
are
it.
you what are you proudest of?
That's interesting. Professionally, personally, anywhere.
Period.
I have the coolest son in the world. I have a 14-year-old son, intelligent, emotionally intelligent, squared away kid. Best thing I've ever done in my entire life.
How'd you make that happen? Because a lot of young people nowadays are pretty entitled. Or
They are.
yeah,
And and it's funny because he's a low key guy, and I'm not necessarily a low key guy in all aspects of my life, but he is. He's very humble, and which is awesome. And it it came up the other day. I have a few. One of my things I like to do is cars and motorcycles and things like that. And one of my cars, he calls it the red car. It's a red Ferrari convertible, and he came to me very maturely, which was cool for a 14-year-old, and said, "Dad, I don't want to hurt your feelings, but do me a favor and don't pick me up from school in that car anymore." And I'm like, "Why?" He said, "It makes me really uncomfortable because people take pictures and they ask me about it in the hallway." And he's like, I know you like it and I don't want to hurt your feelings, but please don't pick me up in that car anymore." And I was really impressed with how he was able to have that conversation with me in a way that was soft but direct. Like he knew what he wanted to get out of that conversation. He knew it had the potential to make me feel not great. So he tried to cushion that, but still in a way that said, "I'm asking you, I'm not telling you, but I'm asking you, can you just not do this thing for me?" Which is to me is really cool. And that emotional intelligence is something that is so important in all aspects of life, especially in business, because business is about dealing with other people. And having that emotional intelligence can only help you. So I'm really proud. I'm proud of everything about him. In fact, I
how do
just
you
noticed
develop?
I can't help but smile when I talk about it. Go ahead.
Fantastic. Sorry if I cut you off.
No,
How
you're
do you
good.
how do you develop that emotional intelligence in other people, like your son or employees or leaders you want to bring up?
Developing is one of those things where some of us get it naturally. Some of us have to work at it, and most of us are somewhere within that spectrum. One of my favorite things. So in the early 1900s, very early 1900s, we have Sigmund Freud making lots of noise in the psychology world and psychiatry world about wanting to have sex with your mother or whatever Sigmund was talking about at that time.
Something like that.
Yeah, and there was quietly another doctor named Alfred Adler, and Adler came up with something called Adlerian theory. And Adlerian theory is act as if and you shall become. And Adler was really a pioneer in that. And it was amazing because what happens is if you don't have the answer to something, it's okay. You just have to think of a person that would have the answer and then do what that person would do. Now, Jonathan, you're probably too young to remember, but back 20 years ago, there was a thing where everyone would wear these bracelets that said WWJD, what would Jesus do? And it was kind of a religious thing, but it became real mainstream. Everyone was wearing, what would Jesus do? And then and the premise behind it was whatever situation you're in, you'd have to ask yourself, what would Jesus do in this situation?
Mhm.
But From a business perspective or a parenting perspective or a friend perspective or a relationship perspective, all you have to do is think about who your hero would be and then ask what that person would do.
Who were some
I
of your
remember,
mentors when you
what's
were
that?
who were some of your mentors, early on in
So
your career or now?
I had some amazing mentors, and some that I didn't appreciate, and some that I sort of didn't like at the time, but now I really appreciate them. So at one point, I was chief marketing officer for a national newspaper company, big company, run by the CEO was incredibly intelligent. At the time, I thought he was too. I thought he was egotistic. I thought he was very proud of himself, lacked all humility. He would speak at industry conferences, and he'd speak as if the words coming out of his mouth were the absolute truth, even though they were opinion in many cases. But
Interesting.
now, when I look back at him, I realize that that confidence is what people want. It's what they need,
Mm,
especially when you're leading an organization. The last thing an organization needs is a leader that people don't have confidence that he or she knows what they're doing.
mm.
Um,
Are you
and
saying Oh, sorry if I cut you off
no, you're
there.
good.
Are you saying that because something I thought was that it's really important to, be someone who's open to, admitting they're wrong or pivoting. So it kind of sounds like that's different from what this guy was doing.
Polar difference. And I used to be the first guy. I used to be the guy that would say, I believe the sky is blue. Um,
Mm,
where the CEO would just get on stage and say, the sky is blue. And he'd say it in a way where you felt kind of stupid even questioning it. Or I would say, uh, if we spend this much money on marketing, then we could potentially bring in this many dollars. That's the
mm,
last thing a CEO wants to hear. What a CEO wants to hear is, if I spend $1 million on marketing, I'm bringing in 1.25 million. Uh, it's that, and and what I learned in that process was, and I initially thought, I don't want to lie. I don't want to say I can do something I'm
yeah.
not 100% positive. It's better just to say what you're going to do and say what you're going to get. And if you don't hit that goal, then fall on the sword, do a mea culpa and say, hey, look, I thought I was going to, I missed it. It's better to admit fault afterwards and admit a failure than to be wishy-washy on the front end. So I've
Mm.
taken that confidence and it's done a ton of good for me in my career ever since then.
Like what kind of good, or how so?
People trust me and they trust that, I tell you that one of the biggest, so they trust me and that they believe what I'm saying when I say it. And I, of course, have a track record of living up to my promises. Uh, but having the confidence of what you're going to do and what you're going to accomplish gives people that safety. We recently, so in my industry now with Neosoma Health, we do prescription medication management, and there's a lot of lawsuits and some instability in the marketplace because and I won't dive into all the details because they're probably not all that interesting to you and your listeners, but um, right now, we offer medications that are compounded by compounding pharmacies. The original manufacturers that hold the patents are now going to a legal battle. There's some uncertainty in the marketplace. So I have employees that read these uncertainties and they say, am I going to be out of a job tomorrow? And what they don't want to hear is one of the truths, which is, I don't know what'll happen tomorrow. All we can do is do our best today. That's a truth, but that's not how you're gonna have a healthy employment force.
People don't want to
Uh,
hear it.
they can tell they that what they want to hear is the other truth, which is we're going to be fine. I know I got this under control. Don't worry about it. I got you. Regardless of what happens with this medication, regardless of what happens with this lawsuit, I got us covered. That's
What
what they
happens
need to
if you
know.
explain it the first way?
What's that?
Sorry if I cut you off.
No, you're good.
What hap- What happens if you explain it the first way of like we don't
They
know
panic.
anything? They panic.
They
Mm,
panic. They start. They start looking for jobs. They're like anyone else, and I wouldn't blame them. They start looking for jobs.
Hmm.
If if you're a captain on a ship and you say our ship might sink, they're more likely to look for another ship than if you're a captain on the ship that says this thing's rock solid. We're not going anywhere.
Hmm.
Um, they're not going to jump ship then. It's hard for my people to jump ship. My employees are incredibly loyal, and it's because I employ something I call the golden handcuffs. I overpay everyone.
Ah.
Um, they can't leave me. They just there's no way they can leave me. I challenge them. There's no way they can leave me and make more money. They just can't. I know what the market pays, and I added 25%. Um, and therefore, but at the same time, if they think that pay is going to go to zero because the ship is sinking, they're going to
Mm,
bounce. And I don't need that.
yeah, that would just be a whole nother headache and problem to solve. Well, Travis, let me
Yep.
ask you this. Running several businesses in different industries, that's no small feat. So, could you tell us about a day where everything seemed to be going wrong and how you managed to turn it around?
Yeah. It was the day my car insurance got canceled, my personal car insurance. Um, it got canceled for non-payment. It got canceled for non-payment, not because I couldn't afford the bill. I just forgot, spaced out. I had bigger stuff to worry about.
Yeah.
I was at the time, it was about 2 years ago, I was working 90 hours a week or so. Um, I was teaching, so I own the school, I own medical clinics. I have a few different endeavors, and I was teaching at the school. I was filling prescription medication refills at night, getting doctors to sign off on, like I was working
Doing
all the
everything.
time.
Yeah.
I didn't have time. My mom got upset because I missed her birthday, um,
Ooh.
which is a bad move. Never do that.
Okay.
And my car insurance got canceled. And I said, you know what? I need help. I can't do it all. I'm not Superman.
Hmm.
And I saw an ad uh, online for a virtual assistant, and I said, I'm going to give this a try. I'm going to spend the 2 grand it costs for a month of a virtual assistant, and uh, and I'm going to have them pay my bills, my electric bill, my car insurance, like just stuff I didn't want to ever have to deal with. I don't want to think about it. I got bigger stuff to deal with.
Stuff
And
you would do, but like, why would you? Just press a
right,
button. Yeah.
yeah, and so many people could sit back and say, how hard can it be? Put it on auto pay, or how hard can it be? And yeah, there are lots of solutions, but when you're business minded and you're 100% focused on your current project,
Mm.
you just distraction is the killer of entrepreneurship. You cannot be distracted. So I outsourced everything that distracted me. So I hired a fantastic woman named Pearl in the Philippines, and she's been with me ever since. And she has my credit card. She knows when my mom's birthday is. She knows what seats I like on the airplane flight. She knows my insurance agent. Um,
Mm.
it's it. She knows everything, and she sent me a text this morning that said the I need you to go get your car inspected for your registration renewal. I set you an appointment. Here's get your car here at this day, this time,
Oh,
um, and I'll take care of the. Yep. But then that opened this can where I didn't know the possibilities. Like I didn't appreciate the possibilities.
mm.
I used to always think in my business I needed to do everything because nobody's going to do it as well as I am, which is true. Nobody is going to do it as well as I will, but they don't have to. They just have to do it. Um, and I've since outsourced everything so much. I went from working 90 hours a week to working maybe 3.5 hours a week. And business is growing. My life, everything's thriving. Now I'll have to worry about my car insurance getting shut off.
So nowadays that you're working only 3 or 3.5 hours a week, what do you spend that time on now?
New projects. I met with. So I was on a car rally a few weeks ago, and I met some doctors on the rally. We started brainstorming over some sake one night at a Japanese joint, and we're we're positioning ourselves to open up a new national medical endeavor related to supervising physicians over medication management. So, I get to work on big picture stuff. I also get to live life. Um,
Mhm.
I mean, I'm not a young guy. I'm 49 years old now.
Mhm.
I spent my 20s and 30s working hard in corporate life and not really living. And now I get to travel the world. I go scuba diving all the time. And I'll be in the Bahamas next week, scuba diving, instead of worrying about my car insurance.
Couldn't have been easy to get to that point where you had
It,
everything set up and you're 3 hours a week. So something you said was the death of entrepreneurs was distraction, and nowadays there are so many distractions, not just from low impact tasks, but there's also distractions from constant messages and social media. So how do you
yeah.
avoid those?
What would not what would Jesus do, but what would fill in the blank do, right? So one distraction might be YouTube videos. And while the guy isn't as popular these days for a bunch of political reasons, I think of Elon Musk. Is Elon Musk watching YouTube videos and commenting on the YouTube videos?
Hell no.
No, he's got better stuff to do, right? So as you're doom scrolling on your phone, you could, and it doesn't have to be a specific person. You could say, I want to be a very successful entrepreneur. Would a very successful entrepreneur be doom scrolling on their phone? The answer is no. So why would I do that?
Mm,
And it's that kind of mindset. So I remember when my son, who I talked about earlier, was 6 months old.
mhm.
When it's your first child and they're 6 months old, it's really difficult. Like raising an infant is hard. It's taxing on you. You just want them to be cool, and they're not cool because they can't
Grow up
communicate.
already.
Yeah. And I remember getting very frustrated. And I remembered that Alfred Adlerian theory of what would the best dad in the world do in this situation? And you know what? The best dad in the world would probably take a deep breath, chill out, understand that this is an infant. They can't even think. They can't communicate. They're trying to communicate. Chill out and just take it one minute at a time. And and that's how you become the best dad in the world. Is just think of what would the best dad in the world do in this situation, and then do it.
It's so easy
And I
to
go
it's so
ahead.
easy to just react and not be very thoughtful with our actions because the human brain is very efficient. We just keep doing what we've been doing this whole time
For
instead
sure.
of up leveling. And something else, Travis, that would be interesting is what were some lessons that you learned earlier on in your career when you were doing media or investment banking that have proven most valuable to your current business?
Um, I remember where I was too. I was the vice president of a newspaper in Colorado Springs, Colorado, called the Gazette. And I was sitting in a meeting, and someone brought up a quote that was attributed to Einstein, but I can't actually find it ever truly being attributed to him. But so I don't know exactly where it came from, but the essence of the quote is if I had an hour to solve a life or death problem, I would spend 55 minutes defining the problem. And that changed my outlook on everything. Every problem is simple if you really drill it down to what the problem actually is. Because sometimes we might have a problem and we don't know what the root of that problem is. So spending
You know,
55 minutes defining the problem. So the quote is if I had an hour to spend 55 minutes defining the problem, because once the problem is properly defined, the solution is incredibly simple.
hmm,
You'll know what to do if you really define that problem.
could you
So, yeah, so I talk to entrepreneurs a lot. I think people gravitate towards other entrepreneurs, especially when you're aspiring to be one.
Definitely.
Um, so I talk to entrepreneurs a lot, and they often say, "How do I get started?" And I always I start off by saying, "How do you eat an elephant's ear?" And the answer is you grab an ear and start chewing. Um, you don't look at the size of the scope of what you're doing. You just start getting at it.
Mm-hmm.
But they say, I want to start a business, but I don't know how. I said, okay, do you really not know how? And then they say, well, I know what I want to do. I said, well, what's stopping you? And we keep drilling down to what's stopping you. And they say, well, I don't know. And I'd say, where can you get that information? And they'd say, I could go read about it, or I could ask another entrepreneur. I said, okay, what's stopping you? And then they say, I don't have time. I said, okay, what's stopping you from having time? Because not having time isn't the real problem. We need to define that problem. What's stopping you from having that time? And they'd say, well, I work all day. I said, all right, how many hours a week do you work? 40 hours. There's 162 hours in a week. You're working 40 of them. We got a lot of hours left.
Mm-hmm.
Where's that time? And they're like, well, I have to drive to work. I was like, all right, let's get past that. It's another 10 hours round trip, 5 days a week. Like, what's really the problem? I don't know who to ask. Okay, why not? Like, what's stopping you from asking someone else who to ask? I've had people come to me about for business advice that I didn't know the answer to, but I might know someone that knows the answer to it. And one thing I've learned is people, if you ask earnestly and you ask sincerely, people want cool people, and most people are cool, not all, but most cool people want to see other cool people win. So if someone were to ask me for advice, I'm going to give it to them. I'm not going to ask for a penny. I'm not going to ask for anything in return. I'm just going to give them advice. If I don't know the answer, I'm going to do my best to hook them up with someone that does know the answer. And if they don't know the answer, the people I hook you up with they're going to have friends that might know the answer. I only associate with cool people. I'm quick to. Most people are cool. Every once in a while, if I run into someone that's selfish or just not my vibe, I'm happy not to be friends with them. And yeah,
That's a good lesson. If you had an hour to solve a problem, you spend the first 55 minutes defining it. Every problem's super simple, and it's all about asking, what's stopping me, or where can I get that information? So,
yeah. And sometimes it's money. What's stopping you? Money. All right. Well, that's a different problem than finding information. All right. Why don't you have money? How much do you need? All right. Where can you get it? What are different ways you can get it? I got to tell you, man, there's never been a better time on earth to solve problems now that we have AI. Because you can ask those questions to AI and they'll give you fast answers. It was a lot more difficult 10 years ago.
do you use AI a lot?
I use AI every day.
For what?
Sometimes it's goofy stuff. Sometimes it's selfish stuff. Um, I want to buy a new car. I'm bidding on a new car at an auction right now, and I need to know what things to look out for with that car. I need some licensure information for a medical clinic in New York. I'm working through some licensure deal, and AI answers. I've learned you need to spot check AI quite a bit. Like you can't take it as gospel, but it's a good start.
How do you foresee AI becoming a bigger part of business for entrepreneurs?
AI is amazing. So AI will take the place of simple decisions, IO type decisions. So within people, most people have either a creative brain set or a engineer's brain set. They're either really good at solving problems or really good at creating problems, or whatever you want to call that creative side. And the engineer side, that's where AI really shines because it knows that 2 plus 2 equals 4. Where AI doesn't do really great yet is those situations where we could have a force multiplier where 2 plus 2 equals 6. And sometimes that force multiplier is just knowing the right person, getting the right energy, getting some creativity going. AI does it's funny, some people will say AI is good at creative things. Like you'll see artwork and things that AI will create that way, but it's only as good as the input you give it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it needs to be really specific to get out of it what you want to get, to get specific what you put in to get out. Sometimes people just need to have that creative mindset. And AI, that's where AI falls short, in my opinion, right now.
Creative in terms of, or it falls short in terms of,
Just having creative solutions.
hmm,
It's good at IO solutions.
like what's a creative solution that, like what's a problem you ran into and you solved it in a creative way that AI probably wouldn't have came up with?
You know, I had a packaging issue. Well, I tell you what happened. I shipped some medications out for the medical clinic to a buddy of mine who his one of his family members was getting treated by one of my providers, and I shipped some medication. And he said I had lunch with him a week later, and he said I'm not really impressed with the packaging. He said your OBE sucks, and OBE is out of box experience.
Mm,
And you know who does out of box experience like a rock star is Apple. Apple, when you get their boxes, they're easy to open. They're nicely presented. Their OBE is on point. My OBE sucked at that time. He was right. I didn't know how to solve that. So I could have gone to ChatGPT and probably gotten some ideas, but I wouldn't have gotten all the way there.
mm,
Um, I actually asked the friend earnestly and sincerely. I said, I need help. Can you help me with my OBE? What do you think it should look like? And I got to tell you, he spent like 3 nights with his kids and they delivered a mock up to me the next week that blew me away.
wow.
And they designed it for me. They blew me away. And I said, well, now that I have this mock up, I don't know what to do. All right, let's start defining the problem. Who prints this sort of thing? ChatGPT could tell me who would print it. Who designs it? ChatGPT could give me an idea of who could design it.
Mm,
And then I went to a local print shop with a local designer, showed them what I wanted to accomplish, and they knocked it out of the park. And our customer survey in form of trust on the trust metric. So we measure a few different metrics on our customers.
mm.
The trust metric went way up with
Really?
the correct out of box experience because it didn't look like my medications were being boxed in Myanmar in a sweatshop. Like it looked like a professional medical. It looked like how it should look.
Exactly.
And I was a little embarrassed that I let that slide for as long as I did. But it took a friend with a creative mind to say, you could do better. And
Yeah.
it took me checking my ego at the door and saying, show me, you're right.
Yeah. Sometimes AI doesn't, they don't see your entire life or the things you're doing day to day. They just see the text that you go out of your way to ask. But sometimes
Yeah.
we don't even know we have problems or we're doing something so wrong. And it seems like that's a big way that other people or AI hasn't caught up to yet.
Yep.
So, Travis,
You really need people around you that you can trust. Yeah.
let me ask you this. So, while you got your PhD
Yep.
in industrial and organizational psychology, how have you applied psychology principles to solve some major business challenge?
So my PhD's in psychology and just industrial and organizational psychology is sort of twofold. It's A, the psychology of employees, and B, the psychology of work environments. So it's helped me tremendously in the hiring process. I'm very careful. I've always been a good manager when it came to hiring, but applying those psychological principles to hiring and understanding what motivates people is huge. So I have a ridiculously awesome retention rate on my employees. They don't leave me. Um, and is it because I'm awesome? Yeah, of course. But it's also, of course, um, but also it's because I listen to them. I told you earlier in the call here that I overpay everyone with my golden handcuffs, and that helps for sure. I don't think I don't think people will gravitate towards a new job for more money necessarily, but they'll definitely leave a job if you're underpaying them.
Hmm.
It's hard, but what I do is I sit down with my employees and I ask them, what do you want? Um, what do you want out of your career? What do you want out of your life? Because as an employer, that's my job. It's my job to figure out what they want and help them get it. Because if they think I have their best interests at heart, they're going to look out for me too. So I need all my employees to know the truth, which is I care about their best interests. So my general manager at our Austin clinic, his name is Ritho, awesome dude. And I was talking to him saying, what do you want to do out of your career? And he's a younger guy. He told me the truth. He said, I have no idea. And I said, all right, well, let's figure it out together if you want. As you think of things that you're enjoying or think of things you're not enjoying, let's craft a career path that helps you get to what you're being self-actualized, where you're getting everything you want out of your job. The last thing I want, Ritho's just an awesome, awesome dude. So last thing I want is for him to leave me because he's bored. So what kind of things do you like doing? What kind of things do you not like doing? What kind of things do you think you're best suited for? And it's always asking questions. And in asking those questions, you hope that they give you the feedback to help them. Help me help you. And so that area of psychology has helped me tremendously in building a business. Because the truth is, the only way you can build it yourself is if you're willing to work 90 hours a week and let your car insurance get turned off.
Hmm.
Um,
And you did
if you,
it.
yeah, I did it for a while. Um, but the real gold is when you get to work 2.5 hours a week, you're flying to Bali to go scuba diving, and maybe you'll answer some emails over a Singapore sling on the beach. But like that's the win.
Hmm. Travis, is there anything else you think our viewers should know about success, productivity, or mindset, or entrepreneurship?
It's very common. Thank you for asking. Yes, it's very common these days for internet gurus and leaders to say, just take action. And I guess I want everyone to know that as if you think it sounds cheesy, fine. It can sound cheesy. Just taking action is what you need to do. You just need to do it. And you're going to find that it doesn't hurt as bad as you thought it did. Um, it's okay to fail. Work fast, try things, fail. Like I'd rather have 99 failures and one win than zero wins.
Mm.
Um, so
You've been in business for a while, so was
yeah,
that always the prevailing, you know, opinion of most people that they don't want to fail, and therefore they take less action?
you know what?
You,
I spent 15 years of my career in corporate life, so working for other people.
mm,
Um, that's a safe route. You get a paycheck. You get comfort knowing that they're going to pay you.
mm,
Uh, you're not the one. You're not the one getting all the rewards, obviously, but
right.
but it has safety. Going out on your own is incredibly risky. There's nobody's coming to save you. Um,
Mm,
maybe your friends, if you have a good friend group, that's going to say, "Hey, look, your out of the box experience sucks," but nobody's going to come save you. So there's a lot of risk to that. But taking that risk is the best thing you can do. It makes you stronger. And it's okay to fail. Like it's totally okay to fail. And if someone says, "Hey, I don't have $50,000 to dump into this new venture," find it, go get it. And I know it sounds like I'm making it sound too easy, but I got to tell you, if You could do it. Anyone could do it.
How could someone get $50,000 if they want to start a business?
At first, I bet you if we spent 55 minutes of that hour, I bet you don't even need 50 grand. I bet you need 6 grand. Um, but let's spend the 55 minutes drilling down that problem.
Good.
And then when it comes to the 6 grand, I bet you we can find it. I bet we can find it. If we got to sell some stuff, let's sell some stuff. If we got to go drive Uber for 3 months, let's go drive Uber. I don't really give a shit where the money comes from. Pardon my language. I don't care. I don't care where the money comes from. Let's just get it and let's make that thing happen. Or if you just can't come up with the 6 grand we decided you needed out of the 50, uh, find a partner. Find someone that believes in you. Find someone that you can get on your side and be a partner. I personally don't like business partners because I like to keep 100% of the profits. Um, but if push came to shove, yeah, find a partner. Um, in all events, 55 minutes defining that problem, we can make it happen.
Hmm. Do you actively take that literally, where you literally spend an hour defining a problem?
I don't. However, I do spend a lot of time.
Hmm.
So humans are very solution oriented. When we hear, especially guys, the male mind is very solution oriented.
Definitely.
So when we see a problem, the first thing we do is think of solutions.
Hmm.
And when I catch myself doing that, I consciously make a decision to step back. Let me think about the problem a little bit more. And let me take out a piece of paper and start jotting down what that problem is and mapping it out. Um, I know we're tight on time, but I'll just share one quick learning lesson that stuck with me for a long time.
Hmm.
I previously, I enjoy doing philanthropic work. I volunteer in a number of different ways. And one of the ways I've enjoyed volunteering in my life is through the Make a Wish Foundation. They help children with potentially life threatening illnesses get a wish granted. And when you become a wish granter with the Make a Wish Foundation, one of the first things they teach you is getting to the root of a wish. And I can remember this. I can remember sitting in the family's living room with a 8-year old girl who was bald from chemo. Um, and her wish was she wanted to be a princess for a day. And the way the Make a Wish Foundation makes you spend 55 minutes defining that problem is they call it getting to the root of the wish. So you ask questions like, what does a princess get to wear? What does a princess get to do? How do people treat a princess? What does a princess get to eat? So while she just said she wanted to be princess for a day, we drilled down and we had her define what a princess in her mind was. And then we made that happen. And she was a princess for a day. Not a princess in my definition of a princess, but a princess in her definition of a princess, which is amazing.
That's
So it all
this.
kind of comes back to drilling down.
Yeah, it kind of loops back because something you said about why you have such good employee retention is because you ask them exactly what they want.
Yeah.
So in this case, you're doing the same. Well,
Yeah.
Travis, thank you so much for being on this show. Where can people find you or reach out or follow you?
Best way to find me is on Instagram at Dr. Travis Eng, Dr. Travis Eng. And thanks, man. I appreciate your time. It's always a pleasure.
Absolutely, man. It was good to have you on. So I'm gonna
All
pause
right.
the recording now.